How are you and I coping? Well, first of all, I just cut Bram's hair.
You have to say that.
Alright, well, good morning everyone. Welcome to our lounge room. Turns out it's just Bram and I today.
That's right.
So you're the ones that we've invited to our lounge room today because there's no one else that we can have here.
That's right.
So here we are. Thought we'd just talk about a whole bunch of stuff today. Anything.
So,
Alright.
let's talk about family, marriage.
That's what I think we should talk about too.
Okay.
Why don't we talk about what you and I, how we're coping in lockdown. This is our second lockdown for Melbourne.
Yeah.
How are you and I coping? Well, first of all, I just cut Bram's hair.
You have to say that.
He had a bit of a mullet going.
Yeah.
And so I cut it. I just cut it just then. Because I didn't want to have it on camera again. Because one of our kids said, "What's with Dad's hair?"
Yeah, it's like going shoo.
So anyway, so I've become a hairdresser. Congratulations. You're welcome, Bram.
She can do anything.
Yeah.
And
So I've cut your hair. How else are we coping? Oh, it was really cute yesterday. Or whenever it was. When was it? Bram was watching Farmer Wants a Wife. That's what we do in lockdown.
Yeah.
And then next thing, out comes the cheese and biscuits on a little bit of a wooden platter. It was so cute. And so we could title this episode Pastor Wants a Wife. I think that's really funny. Anyway, how are we coping, Bram?
Oh, I think just like many others, I think we are, it's not easy, but we're
What do you mean it's not easy?
no.
It's always easy living with me.
That's great. That's great. This situation we are talking about.
Oh, the external.
It's not about you. It's about COVID-19.
How are we coping?
Yeah.
How can we encourage everyone else to cope in
Well,
these lockdown times?
In the lockdown time, I think the way I cope, one of the advice I received by somebody under pressure, I think it's important to maintain our routine. Right?
Yeah.
So one of the things of my routine, no, I'm not saying that I do that like strictly, but it's good to have it there, something you go back into, and that is, I keep my routine. I normally get up reasonably early. I used to get up religiously.
What do you mean reasonably early? He gets up at like 4:30 in the morning. Does anyone else out there think that's actually reasonable? Anyway, continue.
Yeah, I do that, and
You preach and I'll tell the truth.
Yeah. That's very good.
Okay, so one of the things we do is laugh at each other's jokes. That's really good. Married couples out there, anyone doing a relationship, all right?
So, see, that
Hang
is,
on, the phone just rang, so it keeps
yeah.
stopping filming, if there is such a phrase. Okay, go. Anyway,
Yeah.
you were saying you get up because you have a routine.
Yeah, so
You get up at the ungodly hour of 4:30.
yeah, and I have this motto: no Bible, no breakfast. So I think I've done that since, I would say, since maybe in the 80s. It's been a habit for me.
It's amazing.
83, 84. Yeah, I'm not perfect. Every now and then I'll sleep in because, the last thing you want to do is to be legalistic about things and rigid. And
No comment.
so I maintain that, and I think as a believer of God and God's word, it's amazing when you keep that routine at often at crucial times or at times, interesting time under pressure, scriptures will speak back to you.
Yeah.
And I think that is the strength. Some people have the opinion that when you walk with God, everything's gonna be fine. No, actually, like the psalmist would say, yea, even though I walk in the valley of shadow of death, I will not be fearful because you are with me. I think often God, in the forming of us, He allows situation happen, even this situation with COVID-19, just to prove that the truth of God is, when it's planted in our hearts, is enough to sustain us.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah.
So that's how I cope. Mind you, I'm saying the anxiety, the fear, fears and all those things, they're all there. But I think having enough of the truth of the Word of God in me enables me to discipline me in the way I see things, my perspective, discipline my thought life and all that.
Yeah. And I think that overflows into how you and I react, because
Absolutely.
clearly, like everyone else, we're here on our own together, hence the lounge room with no guests.
Yeah.
It's you and me,
Yeah.
baby,
Yeah.
and everyone else who's going to be watching. But like, we've been doing this since March,
Yeah.
right? And I mean, even before March, you and I are pretty much together 24/7. Like, we're rarely apart, and people kind of know that about you and I, right?
Yeah.
But even now, it's sort of amplified because of what we're going through. So, hang on, is that working?
Yeah, I think so.
This is so good.
Yeah, it is working.
Is it working?
Yeah.
It's working.
Yeah.
It's kind of amplified because of the fact that we can't now kind of have anybody else invited into our life or into our circumstances, or at least not that we think we can. We're not sure about that. We have to figure out all the regulations, but as we go. But you and I are coping really well.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, just a little secret. It's not a very well kept secret because we talk about it all the time. Bram and I have been married for 40 years, right? We've known each other for 44 years. We've been in love with each other for 44 years. And we are both very intense, passionate people.
Yeah.
So we've fought a lot over the years. Is that true, Bram?
Yeah.
Really? Is that true? Yeah.
I always win. But,
yeah. We've had some mega arguments because we're both fiery, full on. We're leaders. We were leaders in the making. So we would always have these arguments. But it's incredible as we've grown older and as we've just walked with God and learned to walk in with the character of God, forming us.
Yeah.
All of that intensity and that fieriness, and really it's all self-focused. The reason we argue is because, the only reason we would have argued was because we saw ourselves as victims.
That's it.
Whereas as we've kind of grown as human beings, and we are growing, Bram, look, let's commend ourselves.
You've been growing old or growing?
Both. Growing old, but we're also growing. It's a continual growth, but we have all of that fiery passion now, instead of being directed towards sticking up for our own rights and our own thing. It's about looking at it from the other person's perspective, and I think that's one of the greatest things you can do in any relationship. And so we kind of don't really argue. We just laugh a lot. And we tease each other a lot. And
one thing I learned, so I think somebody wrote once, the key to happiness or to joy is learn to laugh at yourself. Isn't that great? No, it's true, actually. And I think in our marriage, I think that probably one of among many lessons that I learned from you is you keep saying, Bram, laugh at yourself, Bram, laugh. I learned to actually laugh at myself because the way I was brought up as a kid, I would say myself as a true survivor because I was brought up abusive physically. And
Not abusive, abused.
abused. Abused physically, and
Don't want anyone getting the wrong impression.
yeah. Sorry, I was abused
Yeah.
physically, and so growing up, you know, I'm a survivor, and so I've taken myself very seriously on every side. It's mainly for my safety, and marrying Dianne. She's got an incredible. She's passionate, but also has an incredible sense of humor, and probably that's part of being an Australian, right?
I don't know.
I don't know. I think
Probably.
Australians are good like that. Actually,
Aussies are good at just
making
laughing at
joke of
ourselves
themselves.
and not taking ourselves too seriously.
And I think being in Australia and also being
My family.
being your family,
Yeah.
and I learned to kind of not to take myself so seriously. And actually, that's very
It's
biblical.
taken a while, everyone.
It's very biblical, actually. The Bible, the Bible, Jesus teaches us to actually keep our eyes off ourselves and
Yes,
put
this
others
is true.
before us.
This is true.
You know, so I think, like literally, in all honesty, both Diana, after 40 years, you know, I've heard people say, you know, when you get married, the first few months, you know.
Oh, here we go. Here's one of the Brahmisms.
No, but people, first few months, you're so in love with each other, and then a few years later, you know, everything falls apart. Or first few months, you kind of so in love with each other, and somebody said that you feel like you just want to eat each other up, you know, you're in love. And a few years later, you wish you had.
We kind of experienced that.
Yeah, we experienced
the
that.
first few years of our marriage.
But the beautiful about marriage is that no marriage are promised to, you know, we conduct weddings, many weddings, and in our advice to people getting married, we always say, we promise you your marriage is not going to be perfect, but the good thing is you're both growing. The fun about and the joy of marriage is growing together.
Yeah.
And to become, often people look, am I compatible to you? No, the Bible doesn't talk like that. The Bible talks about as we live together, we become compatible. And Diane and I, you know, like, honestly, we are more in love now than we've ever been.
That's it.
We are, and I remember saying to one of my kids, if the only legacy we leave as pastors, as ministers, is that people will remember Diane and I as a couple that really in love with one another, let it be so.
Yeah.
That's all, you know, like really.
Yeah.
And I think
It's
it's awesome.
Yeah.
So have I told the truth or was I preaching?
You told the truth.
I wasn't preaching, I was telling the truth.
Yeah.
That is bad.
I think at any time, you know, we just have to be authentic.
Yeah.
And during this time of lockdown, even no matter where you are in the world, you might be out of lockdown, but even just in a relationship setting, regardless of whether you're married, you're not married, or whatever, just be a blessing to people.
Yeah.
Like yesterday when Bram got the cheese and the bickies out just because he'd been inspired by Farmer once a while, I thought that was so cute. I mean, he didn't quite set it up the way that I would have set it up.
Yeah. No one can do that the way you do.
No. Yeah. But, you know, it was just a little spark of joy in our day. And we just kind of go from that place in the room to that place in the room. So we go from there to eat, to there to drink coffee, from there to eat cheese and biscuits. But it's all in the same house. It's all in the same place. It's quite hilarious. And you're all doing the same thing. But we kind of make it a moment.
Yeah. Right.
So make things moments. And you might be saying, well, that's great for you, Di. You're not at home with a whole bunch of kids. Hey, guys, I used to be. We had 5 kids. Yeah. And I had to homeschool for, I don't know, I can't remember how many years, but we won't talk about that because my children don't want to hear about the homeschooling years because they think they were raised Amish. But anyway, apart from that,
let me be exact, 1984 to 1991.
Really?
Yeah. Jessica was 2-3 years old, or 85.
Yeah. So quite a few years. And we were in ministry and you know, all sorts of things. Of course, we didn't have 5 kids at the time. We had them one at a time. But, you know, if you keep I get it, life is crazy busy. And we were doing all that in this tiny house, a 12 square house with 3 bedrooms and not even 2 bedrooms actually when we started. 2 bedrooms and 1 bathroom. It was a tiny little house. But if you keep the essence of just being nice people and keeping the joy of the Lord and keeping your eyes on other people, when we have the attitude that wants to serve one another,
right.
See, I reckon the greatest issues happen in marriage, Bram.
Yeah.
And I mean, we've seen this with ourselves in our marriage journey, and we've seen it in other people's relationships.
Yeah.
When people want to maintain their own sense of rights
That's it.
and what they feel they're deserving of, that's when things go really haywire.
Yeah.
When we begin to take ownership of our mistakes, and everyone's going to make mistakes. Of course, they're going to make mistakes. But when we take ownership, it's incredible, you know. And we've tried to train ourselves to do that, and it hasn't been easy because the natural part of you wants to stick up for yourself. You know, and the Bible calls that the flesh. It calls it the self-life. It wants to just hold on to a sense of rights. But over the years, you know, not only have we learned to say sorry to one another, and when I mean sorry, I don't go sorry, not that kind of sorry. We've been there, done that. That doesn't work, guys. It doesn't really bring a blessing, does it, Bram?
Yeah, now, actually, on that, on a different sort of sense, I said to various different young couples, I asked this question. Let me ask you this: in your marriage, how important is it for you to be right? I said, if it's
a good question.
If it's very important, you'll be in trouble. And sometimes, I mean, just in life, in general, especially in marriage, it's not important being right. It's about making room for each other. And sometimes you feel like you are misunderstood. So, you know, and you could be right, but if your attitude and response is wrong, you're wrong.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, absolutely. So we've learned over the years to just really say sorry. And when I mean say sorry, when I say sorry, I mean take ownership for our part in it.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean the other person still doesn't have to apologize, but it just means we take, because you've got to learn to be one. You've got to learn in any relationship, you know, you've got to learn to walk together and journey through life together. And you end up very lonely and very alone if all you ever want to do is to be right. So, you know, we've trained ourselves over the years to just follow the truth of the Word of God, which says to just say sorry and to forgive, but also to say sorry even to our kids. And I remember many times, I can see it now in my mind's eye, sitting as a little family. Do you remember back even in Knoxfield and different places, we'd sit down and we'd gather the kids around after, if there'd been a bit of turmoil in the family and anger or frustration or yelling or anything that, you know, we felt bad about afterwards. Yeah. And we would apologize to the kids. And that was awesome. And that was something really new for Bram to do, because raised in Indonesia, well, that wasn't normal, was it, for the man,
not really.
the authoritarian, for the parents to say sorry. It wasn't something that was demonstrated, whereas I guess in Australia, and my parents, who were amazing parents, and my mum is still alive, incredible woman. Maybe I should do a lounge room with her one day. That would be so much fun. Yeah. That would be beautiful. I'll do a lounge room with her. Yeah. My dad passed away 2 years ago, but he was kind of my hero, and I won't talk too much about him because I can already feel tears forming in my eyes. But he was amazing, and he was a role model. Yeah. He was a role model to Bram. Yeah. And for some of you young men, you know, look for role models. And when I say role model, it's not that dads would sit down and talk to Bram and tell him how to live life. No, Dad was a true Aussie bloke, wasn't into all that kind of stuff. He just lived his life. But Bram was a good student, and Bram would watch him. He would watch how he would respond to my mum. Yeah, he would watch how he would respond to us kids, and he used to watch me fighting with my dad. This
Yeah.
is when I was 17, 18, 19.
Yeah.
Stand up yelling arguments. This is, I didn't become a Christian until I was 19, but I was fiery and I'd had arguments with my dad, but he would watch how my dad would handle that. He watched how Dad responded to Bram when Bram asked for my hand in marriage, and how Dad cried and said it would be an honour to have you in our family, Bram, and there's a whole story to that. And then he just watched Dad and Mum live out their marriage and live out their lives, and that's how Bram was mentored by my dad, by watching.
That's it.
And you can all watch people. We can all learn from people. And I think that's really key. To have, we need, if we're so engrossed in us thinking we always have to be right, we're going to miss the beautiful people that are journeying past us, that are walking past us in our lives, who are right there in front of us for us to learn from. If we're so busy and we're so preoccupied with trying to be right and hold on to what we think is, our perspective, we're going to miss the precious people who God has actually placed in front of us. It might be your parents who have irritated you all your lives. Well, get over it and start looking at them. Maybe learn from them. It might be some of your siblings. It might be your spouse. It might be your neighbors. It might be people at work. It might be that quiet person at work that you don't take much notice of because they don't talk much, but they might be a living example to you of how to do life well and how to live out a relationship well.
Yeah. The simple thing about, not just being husband and wife, but being parents, like I watch your family. And one thing I realized that children don't follow instructions. They follow, and in many situations they emulate behavior and examples. So I think somebody, I remember, somebody, I can't remember the guy's name, it's out of my head, died before we had kids. This guy said, the best thing you can do for your kids is loving each other, because that's what they want to see.
Yeah.
They don't necessarily articulate that, but the loving relationship between mom and dad is the safety environment for the kids. Yeah.
And how parents resolve things and deal with things. It's really important.
It's interesting because people say, as parents, we never argue and, blah, blah, blah. But, sometimes it's okay for kids to see parents in that disagreement and even arguments, but it is also important how they resolve. And that is pretty much training the kids how to resolve conflicts. So well, maybe a second second part of this discussion we might have it, but
talk about all of that.
We can talk about all this another time.
It's awesome, isn't it, though? Like this is kind of where the essence of true living happens, is in our key relationships. And I think marriage and family life, there are a lot of you who'll be watching and say, well, don't count me out, I'm not married. I get that. But in family life, I believe family is kind of God's design for where, technically speaking, we should learn how to grow as human beings.
That's right.
And when we have dysfunctional families, or when we've come out of dysfunctional families, it creates dysfunctional people, because families are meant to be the core unit of where we learn to live and where we learn to love and be loved and learn to have a voice. And sadly, many of us don't do that well. And we look back on how we've raised our family, and I've got a lot of regrets as a mum.
So do I.
But that's going to happen. But even so, it's still a journey, and you still get time to resolve many things.
That's right.
And care for one another and love one another deeply. And so anyway, we just pray that you guys are having an okay time in lockdown number 2. If you're from Melbourne, if you're outside of Melbourne, then just stay safe. Stay safe in this time of COVID-19. But more than anything, really love each other and care for one another. And guys, keep a sense of humour. Life's too short. Like, we laugh at each other. not so much with each other, at each
And
other.
each other. Yeah.
We might include a blooper in here, 1 or 2 bloopers, we'll see. We'll figure that one out, but there might be some bloopers that we'll put on at the end. But honestly, the key to living well is, just don't worry too much about tomorrow. Jesus said, don't
That's
worry
right.
about tomorrow. Today's got enough issues for itself, and tomorrow's got enough issues. Just live life today. Let him take care of us. If he looks after the birds, the animals, the flowers, the trees,
That's
he cares
right.
for them, how much more is he going to care for you and I?
That's it.
And so don't worry about all that. Just give everything to God. Cast your cares onto him, because he does really care for you. And we can testify to that. Oh my gosh. We'll leave that for another lounge room, but
That's right.
honestly, we've seen over the years, we've proven that. And it's been displayed, and our kids have seen that. They've seen the times where God has come through for us.
That's right.
And where he's provided for us. And we feel like we live a very blessed life in spirit, soul, and body. In every way, we live a blessed life.
Yeah.
And in our minds, and in our hearts, and in our perspective. Doesn't mean we have, huge amounts in some people's minds and some people's perspective, but in our hearts, we are so happy. We could not be more content or happier people. And so, in this kind of area, in our relationships, let's just do them well.
That's
But
right.
take stock of your relationships. Life is too short. All right, so live well, love well, and laugh well.
That's
All
it.
right?
That's it. That's good. That's good.
All right, guys, we love you.
Love you
and
guys.
We'll talk to you soon. See ya.
Bye. That's the third time you've done it.
Hey?
Is that the third time you?
Be a normal human being.
I hit my cotton.
Yeah, you did. Better? You ready? You ready?
Hi everybody.
I haven't started. Okay, stop.
Hey.
Hang on, wait.
Yeah, it's on.
But it won't stop.